In our modern era, steam locomotives aren't really considered very exceptional, and especially not very fast. A lot of locomotives can reach pretty decent speeds for steam locomotive standards, but with high-speed trains now a pretty prevalent thing in the modern world, seeing a steam locomotive is more than often a reminder of just how slow the past used to be. Not helping is the fact that most steam locomotives are restricted to low speeds on the main line for safety reasons. However, in their heyday, the fastest steam locomotives were some of the most famous ones in the world, simply because they were the fastest. Obviously, with a train, you're going from point A to point B, and so if your train is going faster, then, well, it takes less time. Simple as that. This video is going to cover all of the fastest steam locomotives that we have records of. A lot of their records are disputed, so this video is going to be mostly factual with a little bit of my opinion sprinkled in depending on which records I think are the most credible. Anyways, let's begin at the very beginning of the railway industry, 200 years ago. In the very early days of rail transport, trains were pulled either by horses or gravity. It wasn't until 1804 that Richard Trevithick invented the first steam locomotive as a proof of concept, with a, for the time, blazing top speed of 5 miles an hour. In 1825, the Rainhill Trials were held, a competition to see which locomotive would be the best for the new Stockton and Darlington Railway, which just so happened to be the first railway ever. The winner was Stephenson's Rocket, but it wasn't the fastest. That award went to Ericsson and Bathwaite's Novelty, which was able to reach 28 miles an hour officially and was rumored to reach as high as 60, an incredible feat for the time. Unfortunately, mechanically, it was an absolute piece of trash. Following the Rainhill trials throughout the 1800s, railways became more practical, and so speeds steadily increased, although there weren't really any major breakthroughs in speed. At this time, railways were in their infancy, and reliability and power of locomotives was more important than the speed. The thing was, it wasn't the locomotives that limited the speed. It was rather the infrastructure and rolling stock. In 1848, a train on the Boston and Maine Railroad reached 60 miles an hour, the first man-made machine to go a mile a minute. As the year 1900 dawned, trains were reaching about 75 miles an hour if they were really pushed, but the general speeds were still around 50 to 60 miles an hour. However, as the new century began, locomotives began to go faster and faster, and eventually a major goal started to come onto the horizon. At the beginning of the 1900s, the goal of reaching 100 miles an hour in a locomotive became the most prestigious prize in the entire railway industry. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was looking to increase the speeds of their passenger trains. Obviously, faster trains meant less travel time, which meant they could run more trains, which meant they could run more passengers, which meant they could get more money. And so as a result, the railroads sped up their trains. Eventually, though, the companies realized that reaching the prestigious 100-mile-an-hour goal would make their railway incredibly popular, and it would get cemented in the history of everything forever. And so, railroads began claiming that they had reached 100 miles an hour. In 1893, New York Central's I-Class number 999 was claimed to reach a speed of 112 miles an hour, but that was pretty unlikely, to be frank, as it was made with stopwatch timings, and so human error is most likely the reason. Also, this absolute abomination, known as the Hurricane, was also claimed to reach 100 miles an hour. But no. In 1904, a GWR City class number 3440, City of Churro, was claimed to reach a much more sensible 102 miles an hour while hauling the Ocean Mail Special. This is more likely, but again, it was recorded with a stopwatch, so we have no way of confirming for sure that this was an actual speed record. In reality, Churro was probably traveling close to 100, but most likely didn't reach it, considering it was an older 440 City class design. By the 1930s, speed was the most important thing for a passenger train to have. And in the northwestern United States, the Milwaukee Road was locked in a battle for speed with the Chicago and Northwestern and the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy railroads on the fastest service between Chicago and Minneapolis. As a result, they decided streamlining was the answer. This was in 1934. However, before they could get the streamlining, they needed to see just how fast the infrastructure on that line could handle it. So, they decided to do a test. They chose Milwaukee Road F6 Baltic number 6402 for this test run on July 20th, 1934. On this fateful run, 6402 would make history. 6402 reached an estimated speed of 101.3 miles an hour. This record is extremely disputed by rail fans, mainly because the locomotive was never clocked at 100 miles an hour. Instead, it was measured at around 95 to 98 miles an hour while it was going uphill, meaning that the engine had to have been going faster before reaching the hill in order to be going that fast up the hill. As a result, I consider this record legitimate, and is why I placed it here in the video. Unfortunately, 6402 does not still exist, as it was scrapped by the Milwaukee Road in the 1950s. Such a shame that it wasn't preserved. In November of 1934, following 6402's record, LNER A1 number 4472 Flying Scotsman also reached 100 miles an hour, restarting the races to the north. The LNER and the LMS were racing for the fastest service from London to Scotland, and in 1935, LNER 2509 Silver Link, completely unintentionally, reached 112.5 miles an hour. The LNER's record string was broken in 1936, and not even by the LMS. German DRG 05002 managed to attain 124.5 miles an hour. In 1937, the LMS struck back with their 6220 Coronation, reaching a remarkable 114 miles an hour. Although this wasn't the world steam speed record, it was faster than the LNER. They weren't going to let that stay fact. On July 3rd, 1938, LNER A4 Class 4468 Mallard was chosen to pull a special high-speed test train to test the new Westinghouse QSA brakes. Mallard was specifically chosen for this train as it was Sir Nigel Gresley's favorite A4, as he was a bird watcher and named all of his locomotives after birds, and Mallard just so happened to be his favorite bird. He wanted this locomotive specifically to go down in history, and oh boy did it. Mallard plummeted down Stoke Bank with its dynamometer car behind it, and it was able to attain a remarkable speed. After it stopped, which it had to because one of its bearings had been overheated substantially by the excessive speed, the dynamometer car data was looked at, and it was proven that Mallard had reached a speed of 125.5 miles an hour, at least. Now, the record is normally said to be 126 miles an hour, but that speed was only reached for a few meters on the dynamometer car, so it's heavily claimed that it didn't actually reach that speed. but even so, it probably reached 25.7 to 25.9 going down the hill. Again, it's debated because since it was going down the hill, it's debated whether it technically counts, but it's currently considered the fastest steam locomotive in the world. However, of course, the rivalry continued, or at least it would have, but the outbreak of World War II prevented any attempts for both companies. After the war, infrastructure repaired stopped further test. Once British Railways was formed, the LNER and LMS were combined, and attempts permanently halted. Mallard is today still considered the fastest steam locomotive. After the record, several other steam locomotives from other countries were rumored to break it. PRR S1 6100, the big engine, was claimed to have reached 156 miles an hour in 1945, allegedly with a fine being pressed against it for that speed. And later, the T1s were rumored to have broken it. There are also confirmed reports of NYC J3s going 125 miles an hour, but this is without a decimal. So one of them might have exceeded Mallard's speed, but not made it to 126. The Milwaukee Road F7, the successor to 6402, also supposedly beat it, but this is unconfirmed. They do hold the steam speed record for the average speed between two stations, however. Now we're left with a big question. Will the record ever be broken? In theory, it could be. 8 LNER A4s are still around, with a few in operation, which could in theory break it. It was pretty much confirmed after Mallard's run they had only pushed it enough to test the brakes, and it could have gone faster if they really wanted it to. Unfortunately, steam in the UK is limited to 75 miles an hour on the main line and 25 miles an hour on heritage railways, so there's no way it's getting up to that speed. It has been announced that the new build PRR T1 5550 will try to exceed 126 miles an hour once it's complete, but it's unknown if American railroads will allow it, if 5550 will even be capable of it, and if they're willing to risk such an expensive and long-term project breaking because of a simple test they wanted to do. But I don't know, we'll see. But as for now, Mallard is considered the fastest steam locomotive in the world. For the locomotives mentioned today, quite a few of them are still around. Rocket is at NRM Shildon, and NYC 999, although in a rebuilt state, is at the Science and Industry Museum in Chicago. Milwaukee Road 6402 is dead. Flying Scotsman 4472 is currently on mainline rail tours and is owned by the NRM. 6220 Coronation is dead, but one of its siblings, Duchess of Hamilton, is still around. None of the S1s or T1s were preserved, sadly. Mallard is still around and is on display at the NRM in York as its centerpiece, and 5550, well, it has yet to be built. Who knows if the record will ever be beaten again in the future, but it seems as a pretty dead record for now, considering steam locomotives aren't used anymore. But, of course, there are other types of locomotives. And if this video does well, maybe I'll make a part 2 talking about diesel or electric locomotive records. Who knows? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and catch 'em while you can.